Well, good morning everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm out on Frenchman's Bay today, heading up the coastline to go see some more lighthouses. It's obviously, you can see, it's a beautiful day out here. And nothing but blue skies and sun. So yeah, we're gonna go see 7 more lighthouses today. Egg Rock, Prospect Harbor, Petite Maine, Narraguegas, Nash Island, Moose Peak, and Libby Island lighthouses. So it's going to be a fun one today. Got a lot of ground to cover, so let's get to it.
Seas were calm as we pulled out of Bar Harbor and made our way past the mountains of Acadia. Morning fog still covered the upper reaches of Frenchman's Bay, but as we made our way into the Gulf of Maine, it was clear skies all around. Our first lighthouse of the day was Egg Rock, which is located about 4 miles outside Bar Harbor, and this one I was particularly looking forward to photographing after the overabundance of clouds on my last visit. Egg Rock is home to perhaps the most dramatic lighthouse scene in the state. This view of the beacon with its red roof providing some nice color with Champlain Mountain rising up behind in the background. I thought this was the scene that I would be most interested in capturing, especially with the foliage at near peak levels bringing some more color to the scene. Instead, it was on the approach to the lighthouse that I captured my best image. The light at this early hour of the morning was perfect for this angle of the lighthouse. I've always loved this ledge that sticks out just in front of the lighthouse, but I hadn't previously captured any images that had featured it, and the seagulls perched on top of the rock was a nice added bonus. In my mind, pure blue skies over the top of the lighthouse were simply perfect for this scene. So with my first image of the day now captured, it was time to head north to our next lighthouse.
So yeah, now we're heading to Prospect Harbor Lighthouse. Sadly, that one had a fire over the summer here, so the keeper's house is in a little bit of disrepair. Half the upstairs burned, but hopefully we can still get some good images of it. So yeah, it's a breezy one out here today, a little cold, but couldn't ask for a better day than this. So we're gonna head there and see what we get.
It certainly was a little cold, but when the boat stopped moving, the radiant sun quickly warmed everything up again. We arrived at the Prospect Harbor Lighthouse a short while later, and I began to observe the area in search of my next image. This lighthouse is relatively difficult to photograph from the water on the best of days for a number of reasons, but namely because it is located on a Navy base, and the surrounding buildings aren't very picturesque to say the least. However, the fire and subsequent demolition work on the house meant that a nice image likely wouldn't be possible at all, so I instead focused on finding the best angle to show the damage the recent fire had wrought, while still including the beacon in the frame. And so, here's what I came up with. It was this angle that I felt best captured the devastating impacts the fire had to the keeper's house, while still providing a nice view of the tower. Some of the buildings on the Navy base are visible in the image, but overall, I felt that they were not too distracting to the overall scene.
So we left Prospect Harbor, and it's sad to see the house looking like that, but it is what it is. So grabbed a couple of pictures there. I'm gonna be heading out to Petite Maine Lighthouse next. So that's a cool place. There's in the summertime, there's a seabird colony there with puffins and terns and razorbills. Fantastic place. Those birds aren't around right now, obviously, but it's a cool lighthouse. It's the second tallest lighthouse in Maine, and used to have a really big second order Fresnel lens. Doesn't have that anymore, but still, what a fantastic place it is. So we're gonna head there and hopefully get some good shots.
So we made our way out of Prospect Harbor and turned back towards the open ocean, and the Petite Maine Lighthouse soon came into view. Some small wispy clouds were starting to appear across the sky as we approached the island, which was nice as it added some interest to the otherwise clear skies. Petite Maine is the only light station on today's adventure where the keeper's house and most of the outbuildings are still standing. and most of those buildings are beautifully arranged near the lighthouse. We navigated around this southern point of the island, where the lighthouse stands, and I captured a few images of the beacon that I thought might be nice. Passing by the eastern side of the island, we started to get further into the shadows, but the wispy clouds could also be perfectly captured from this vantage point.
So that was cool. The light was really nice there. And like I said, that is just a awesome place. That tall tower standing out in the middle of that island. Yeah, it's just fantastic. So I think I got a good shot. You guys will see it here on the screen in a moment. But now we're heading down, or heading north to Narraguegas. And that's an interesting looking lighthouse. So wow, the breeze is strong, but it feels great. I mean, cold, but refreshing at the same time. So that's just, being out on the water like this is just fantastic. So yeah, heading on to the next one.
With this image, I loved how the lighthouse fit perfectly between that small gap in the clouds. The light wasn't perfect, and neither was the layout of the buildings from this angle, but the shadows do provide a bit of dimension to the lighthouse. But it was those clouds, and the interest they add to the vast blue sky, that really drew me to this particular image. With that image captured, we soon left Petite Manam behind and plowed across the sparkling sea as we continued north towards Narraguegas Lighthouse on Pond Island. We arrived at the island in short time, and I began to scan the area in search of my composition. Pond Island, like many islands here on the Maine coast, is populated mainly with evergreen trees. Therefore, when I spotted a couple of light yellow trees just behind the lighthouse, I knew I wanted to incorporate those into my composition. I waited for the boat to move where I could frame the trees behind the lighthouse before firing off a few frames of the scene. We continued drifting off the lighthouse for a few minutes, which allowed me to capture a few more angles of the station, but I knew my first composition would be my favorite. I just loved seeing the color of those trees behind the lighthouse. I felt that it was really beneficial too, as it helped to break up the otherwise monotonous background of evergreens. This is also the most compressed view of the station, which allowed me to use a square crop and focus in on those beautiful yellow trees, while also enabling me to fill more of the frame with the lighthouse, which is, after all, the centerpiece of the image.
All right, so we passed by the Narraguegas Lighthouse. Looking in pretty rough shape. I haven't passed by it in a few years, and it's looking a little rough, but it was cool. There was one or two small trees that had some nice yellow color to them. I don't know if I was able to get them with the lighthouse. I tried. We'll see how it turned out, but that looked kind of cool. Lighting there is always a little tough, but anyway, now we're heading on to Nash Island Lighthouse. That's just up the coast, just a touch, so we'll be there in no time and see what we can see there. So onward.
Blue skies still were dominating the landscape, but the clouds were certainly becoming more numerous as we made the short jaunt over to Nash Island Lighthouse. The lighthouse stands alone on the island today, as all the outbuildings and keeper's dwelling have long since been demolished. The light was rather poor as we drifted around the north side of the island, but shadows quickly disappeared as we rounded the corner and viewed the lighthouse from the southwest. I began to capture some panoramic images of the lighthouse, where I could feature more of the small island, but quickly moved away from that when I saw the surf crashing nicely on a section of ledge in front of the lighthouse. I waited for just the right wave to roll in, hoping that it would sweep across the entirety of the ledge. I didn't quite get that, but I did capture this. So I didn't get quite as big of a wave as I'd hoped for, but I still like this image. The soft wispy clouds in the sky give it some interest, and I did catch a little of that white foamy water as it broke on the shoreline. All of that adds some action to the image without taking away too much attention from the lighthouse, which I feel has a nice pop right there in the middle of the scene.
Alright, so we have moved past Nash Island. It's a nice little island there. really picturesque. It's doesn't have any trees on it, but I think that's part of what makes it unique from all the others around here. There's also a group of sheep on the island that stay out there all year round. I think I got a little clip of them I can show you guys, and that's something that's unique and cool about that island too. So hopefully I got a good shot of it. We are now moving on up the coast to Moose Peak, which is a fantastic location between the solitary lighthouse there and the cliffs on the opposite island next to it that you can get behind the lighthouse from one angle. Fantastic. And the island it's on is called Mistake Island, which is, the name itself is just really cool. And I've been on the island once, and it is hands down, in my opinion, one of the coolest islands that I've visited, and it's just a tremendous place. So that's next on the list. We're heading there. Breeze continues to pick up. It's getting a little cooler out here, but just fantastic. So heading on up to Moose Peak now.
After a bit of a ride, we soon saw the lighthouse come into view. I find Moose Peak to be one of the most interesting lighthouses here on the Maine coast, so photographing it is always a treat. The lighting was perfect as we approached the island from the southeast, and I captured some images of the lighthouse with the seagulls that were perched on the pink granite ledges beneath the tower. We continued around to the eastern side of the island, where the conditions gave us some beautiful balance of light and shadows. Heading to the northeast, we quickly came into full view of the shadows, so we rounded the corner back to the east and began to slowly pull away from Mistake Island. It was here that I found my composition. As I said, the lighting was perfect at this point in the morning, with just the right amount of shadows from this angle to add a bit of depth to the scene. There isn't much that remains to the station, but I decided to include the old brick whistle house in my frame, just to add a bit of balance. The sloped edge of the clouds mirrors the height difference between the two structures, and I liked the small touch of the seagull sitting below the lighthouse. All those factors together made this image perhaps my favorite one of the day.
So, just left the Moose Peak Lighthouse, and that was spectacular. I've been there I've been past it maybe 4 or 5 different times, and that was the best lighting I have seen. Just fantastic. The way the light was hitting the tower, going around it with the shadows was perfect. And what was another really cool feature there was all these seagulls sitting on the rocks in front of the lighthouse. And I don't know if that's going to show up cool in the images that I captured, but it was a really nice little feature that it just was really cool. Just kind of enhanced the scene a little bit more. So now we are heading just a little farther north to our last lighthouse of the day, Libby Island Lighthouse, and that's going to be a cool one too. It sits up on a really high point on the island, and it makes for some really cool images when you can get the cliffs that come down the one side of the island. If the light's good, I'm not sure where the lighting's going to be at this time of day, so we'll find out. Hopefully we get some good images. The scenery around here, some of the islands here up on the northern coast here of Maine are just really bold rocky cliffs, and they're just so cool. Moose Peak's like that, Libby Island's like that, there's a bunch of these other islands here, they're like that too, and wow, it's just so cool. I don't get up to this side of the Maine coast from the water too often, so to be able to see this is always a treat. So yeah, heading to Libby Island now, and we should be there in a few minutes, so hopefully the light's good there.
Heading north across the open waters of the Gulf of Maine, we soon arrived at the island. The old granite lighthouse sits alone on the island, along with a brick whistle house, but you can see the rusted remains of some of the equipment hanging off the edge of the southwestern cliffs. We observed the lighthouse from the western edge of the island, but the lighthouse was in deep shadows here. We soon circled back to the east side, where we found good light and a fascinating ledge just off the northeast edge of the island. I tried a few different compositions, but couldn't find a way to capture a well-balanced image with the ledge and the lighthouse. We quickly exhausted our time and pulled away from the lighthouse, but not before I captured this image here. It is a rather simplistic view of the light station, but I really enjoyed the wispy clouds that were over the lighthouse from this vantage point. I also liked how the warm hues of the island and the lighthouse stood in such a muted contrast to the pastel blue sky. I hadn't thought much of the scene when I captured it, but I'm definitely happy with how this image came out.
So we just left Libby Island, and we are now going to head down south, back towards Bar Harbor. But yeah, another great lighthouse there. The light was pretty good. Went around to the west side, and the shadows got a little bit too much, so then we went right back around to the east, and yeah, there's some good light over there. So hopefully we got some good shots. But like I said, now we're gonna head back down to Bar Harbor, and now we're going into the wind, so it's rocking, wow. So anyway, hopefully we see something on the way back. If not, great day. Some clouds have moved in, but just spectacular. So, all right, heading down to Bar Harbor.
While we saw plenty of lobster boats, islands, and wildlife as we cruised back towards Bar Harbor, it was passing by the Petite Maine Lighthouse again that I captured my final image of the day. We were quite far away from the island as we passed by, so I used my telephoto lens to capture this image of the lighthouse with Tunk and Schoodic Mountains rising above the horizon behind it. It's such a cool view that I had to capture an image of the scene, and the light was really nice too. And as had been the case all day, the clouds above the mountain were really nice in this scene.
So we're going to be getting ready to pull into Bar Harbor. So I'm going to sign off on this video, but what a great trip to be able to see 7 lighthouses up here on the northern, down east coast of Maine. Some spectacular islands. The weather's been glorious. Yeah, what a great day. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, guys. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and a comment. Both would be appreciated. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Gonna be seeing some more cool stuff here on the Maine coast. So yeah, definitely tune in to see what we got. So, all right, signing off, guys. Catch you next time.